Hey YouTube, B-Town Babe coming in to make a video update on my ICU residency and to talk about some tips while you're in nursing school, whether you're in an LVN program or RN program or even in a nurse practitioner program. Something that I kind of caught on to and a little later in my education. Background is that I was an LVN for about 8 years, then became an RN, and now I am in a new grad program in the ICU. While as an LVN, I actually held some really good positions. I was a clinical specialist, and then as well, I was a nurse manager for a long-term care facility and behavioral health. So I've had a gamut of experience in nursing and actually got pretty high up, pretty successful as an LVN. To the point that really my pay didn't go up too much when I became an RN. I'm now in a graduate program as well to get my nurse practitioner in acute care. And so it only was befitting to try to go into a acute care, critical care position to get some experience. So I'm doing well. I mean, it's really only my first week. And it's been going well with just kind of doing paperwork and health streams, training on policies and procedures. Really nervous. I feel like I haven't really been on the floor long. Though I've been out of schools in a couple of months, it's going to be almost a year I've been out of school. Though I was working, I wasn't working on the floor. And I also wasn't working in an acute care setting. I was in a long-term care facility as a manager. I didn't really work the floor. I hadn't worked the floor for a while. So I'm rusty, to say the least. So I'm a little nervous to get on the floor and also in a fast-paced kind of unit as well. But I'm so excited because when I worked in long-term care and hospice and behavioral health, I definitely loved the population I was working with. I definitely loved training the nurses and the CNAs. But many times in those situations, I'd be talking about evidence-based practice and, we need to implement this policy and that policy. And a lot of times it would be stuff that would be kind of like for a higher acuity, and my managers or administrators and other people would be like, no, Nikki, no, and I'd be like, but I want to. And so then I just always felt really like stuck. It felt like this was not as challenging as I wanted. So I also started to apply to other positions that wasn't in management, and I got some really good offers as an admissions nurse, an assessment nurse, really good paying, awesome jobs in other nursing capacities, mostly administrative, and again, kind of wanted to put me in a track of being in management in outside agencies, not in the hospital. And I was just like, I'm bored. I really want to go to acute care. That's what I want to get my nurse practitioner in, so I need to get in the hospital and get a job. So that's what I did, and I landed one, thank God. So that's where I'm at with that. But also, I wanted to talk about something that, with people who are currently in school, just going after trying to get some externships while you're in your nursing program or volunteering in hospitals. One thing I did see, I was great. It was great that in my LVN program, we had all clinicals inside of a hospital. So I got to see a lot of hospital work, but a lot of LVN programs are mainly, I think, inside of like long-term care facilities and things like that. And they have such a small window of clinical time. But because my LVN program was owned by a hospital, we really got a lot of time in the hospital. So I had a good basis for my LVN. And you know, but one thing that I encountered when I went back for my RN is that because I had not worked in a hospital for setting, I had worked like in nonprofits, clinics, and standalone little like hospices and things like that, and long-term care facilities that were standalone or got you know admissions straight from the hospital, or emergency psych services that was standalone that got transfers from the emergency room. And though we had some high acuities, it wasn't exactly like a hospital. And so when I went into my BSN program, I hadn't been in the hospital for so long. I had a steep learning curve in a lot of ways. Like, I'm, up for the challenge. I'm one of those people that will jump in and try to do things. But I had a steep learning curve of comfortability, and that I would not have had if I had worked in the hospital, or if I had done some externships, while I was in school, or even if I had volunteered. I had wanted to volunteer at the county hospital here. But time gets in the way. Like, I mean, you have a full-time job, you have school, you have all this stuff. Who has time for an externship? Who has time to volunteer? But I have to be honest with you. I do think that, especially if you haven't worked in healthcare, those things give you a leg up. Like in my program right now, in this residency, there is a young lady who was a CNA inside of critical care for years before she got her BSN now. And so she's coming in as a RN resident inside of critical care, but she's worked in critical care as a CNA for all these years. So she got to see how the unit runs. She got to see nurses doing these things. She got to see codes running all the time. She got to see all these things. So her getting used to and her preceptorship is going to be very different than, say, mine or other people's, because she was in, there's a familiarity there. And when you do those externships, and there's also a guy who's in school right now to get his BSN, who is doing an externship as well, and he was in the new hire orientation, and he had worked there before as a CNA. So these guys are like comfortable. They know the system. That's another thing. They already know. One big thing is learning like the system, whether it's Epic or Cerner or whatever. And I hate Cerner. But this hospital has Cerner. I hate Cerner. But you getting comfortable with these systems ahead of time, even that gives you such a leg up coming in, so that you don't have to worry about these things. But you being around nurses doing wound care, you being around people running codes, you being around people who are doing IV infusions, who are, she was talking about how she would go, she was one of the specific people that could go and get blood from the blood bank, or being in the unit and knowing where everything's at, like, where all the supplies are. All these other things. It gives you a leg up. It gives you a familiarity for a unit. Even if you did your externship at another hospital and go to a different one to work, honestly, it gives you such a leg up. When I'm IV certified as a LVN, but when do I do IVs in a long-term care facility? I never. I could do a mean IV when I was in school, but I never get to do that. So now, me coming into a hospital setting, it's like starting all over again. I gotta get comfortable doing this. I gotta get comfortable doing that. And honestly, even in my RN program, I can count how many times I got to do an IV during clinicals. I mean, you get to, yes, but I mean, I graduated almost a year ago. I was in clinicals more than a year ago. I mean, so I'm just trying to give some advice about, I think that if you really want to be in acute care, you should try to do internships for that. You should be trying to do even volunteer. If you can't get an externship, volunteer. Get in the units. It also, one, gives you visibility so that when you want to apply for those jobs, like there were two ICU positions um, that were open, I guess, where I'm working now. And one went to a person who was already in the hospital, which was that CNA who graduated, and then me. And um, I had a lot of, I think, management experience, and that looks good on my resume. But honestly, I was coming in like green, and in my interviews, I was really confident that I interview well. So usually I get jobs that I want. But honestly, I don't know much about it. I can study a lot. I can pick things up pretty quickly. I usually get jobs pretty quickly. So I don't think I'll have a problem. But I can say in my heart, I'm like, I do not know exactly what I'm walking into. And I think when you take the time to do that, if looking back, because this hospital that I am working at now, I'm moving to a new area to work in this hospital, but this hospital was close to my school. Closer, anyways, closer to my school, maybe. If I had really thought this out some more, and was this focused about this specific thing, I think I would have even, like, they hire a lot of LVNs in this hospital too. I would have probably moved up here and became an LVN in one of these units just so that I could have become more comfortable. So that when I became an RN, it was a little bit more familiar. But hindsight is 2020. So I'm trying to give you guys some re-up on it. Like, go do it. Like, even if it's one of the trauma hospitals in your area. I know COVID kind of because even for me, I was going to do that at one of the hospitals in my area, and COVID threw some crap my way last year. So a lot of the hospitals weren't letting you volunteer and coming in, but now that things are kind of opening up a little bit, like, even if you can't get a paid externship or even an externship that's free, that they'll let you work for free, volunteer at a trauma hospital that's in your area if that's what you want to do. If you want to go into that, I want to go into trauma. I want to go into, critical care. I want, for my MP, probably cardio. I'm going to also go back for a specialty in cardiology as well. So it was only natural that I would go and look for ICU and cardiology. I was just like ICU in general. And I lucked out and got into cardio. Jesus watching. Let me just tell you. And I'm not overly religious, but Jesus is watching for me to have gotten that. But put yourself out there. Be confident. I remember I was working with a nurse one time when I was LVN, and one of the facilities I was at, like, I was basically the nurse manager. I trained the nurse managers who worked over me, but licensure wise, I could not be officially the nurse manager because I was LVN at that particular place. And so I was training one of the nurse managers before, and she said something about she has imposter syndrome. That is the first time I had ever heard about that at all. Because I'm from the school of thought of fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? Not to be stupid and not know what you're talking about. But like, if I don't know how to do something, I'm gonna research it and figure it out. I think quick on my feet. So I've never felt like, oh, I'm an imposter. But she used to always say that because she was like, you're really the one doing all this stuff. And if I didn't have you training me or kind of the go-to as like the wisdom person, I wouldn't know, because she was a new RN. And I was like, well, I was like, imposter syndrome. Today is one of the first days I thought to myself, do I feel like an imposter? Like, no. I think I'm pretty confident in who I am. So I don't know if I'll feel that. But this is probably the closest I've ever felt to maybe being or feeling like I was an imposter. Because I was like, am I ready for this? And I let some doubt seep in my head. But like I said, I think a big part of that will help you if you want to go into like a specialty, or you want to go into something like L&D, NICU, which that's my next venture after all this, NICU, is because I feel like it's awesome to be able to move around as a nurse. But if I don't absolutely fall into a niche with critical care forever and ever and ever, which I might probably do, I'll probably try to go into NICU as well later. But the comfortability would definitely be there if you've already done the externship, or even as a nurse practitioner student. So I'm a nurse practitioner student. I'm doing this residency. But I have to be honest with you, my plan after this is I'm already looking at residencies for when I graduate my NP, like cardiology, or cardiovascular residencies for nurse practitioners. So, like, I want to graduate in 2 years from this program and from my nurse practitioner program and go straight into like another residency as a nurse practitioner, and I want to try to volunteer for places so that I can, get into that as well. Just give yourself any type of leg up that you can. Get all your certifications you can get. Go and volunteer, follow people around, when I did my clinicals for my public health, I had to go do some hours for public health for my RN. I specifically went to places that had NPs, not just like master's leveled nurses, but NPs. I followed them around because I wanted to make some contacts who were nurse practitioners, but also so that I could kind of see what they do. I wanted to be able to shadow and see what they do. And so that helped me a lot. It helped me with some of my being able to know some people who were nurse practitioners who could probably help me get a job, who also wrote some of my recommendation letters for my nurse practitioner program. And also, if I wanted to shadow them in the future, I could do so because I've already searched them out for my public health certificate. So just try to make those connections. Part of even doing that with the internships is making connections of people that you could lean on, that could be mentors or who can help you. But anyways, I'm out. Have a good day.